Any discussion? Sobel.
Thank you, Mayor. Of all the shenanigans that I've seen and heard since getting elected, this one ranks towards the top. I had the privilege of being a guest at service this past Sunday at the Hopewell Missionary Baptist Church. And there was an amazing sermon by Reverend Robert Stanley. And one of the sentences in his sermon said, "Compromising our integrity, we become a muddy fountain." This settlement proposal in item number 17 is one giant muddy fountain. The CRA does not owe this money. A $500,000 claim in attorney fees to one of our residents. But if it did, if the CRA did owe this money, it would be the CRA's responsibility to pay, not the city taxpayers, and then only if a court ordered the payment, which is highly unlikely. Who authorized and paid the CRA outside legal counsel fees in this case? Why don't we have a settlement recommendation anywhere from the expert outside counsel who's been paid an enormous amount of money over the years to defend this? We are being asked to reward a local resident, a community activist who I'm told does a lot of volunteer work and who I personally like a lot. We're being asked to reward his bad and likely unethical behavior. He needs to be responsible for his own actions. This agenda issue was not disclosed to the residents or the CRA board until the very beginning of last Tuesday's meeting. It wasn't on the CRA agenda. It was a surprise add-on. There was no backup material then for the board or the residents to see, and there's none now for the residents to see, contrary to Mr. Harrison's statement that this has been thoroughly vetted. There's only a conclusory memo from the city manager that says pay the $265,000 in taxpayer dollars. I wonder, are the residents paying attention? You may hear that this is time sensitive and it had to be done last minute because of the timing of the civil court case, but that's not really accurate in my experience. This litigation is already many years old, and another reasonable extension to produce facts for the commission and the residents would be no problem if requested and if truly desired. I had to do my own research because there's been no underlying facts, no law, no meaningful backup. Why? Part of my research started with Mr. Thrower's sworn statement to the Broward State Attorney on February 1st, 2010. Along with several pleadings, it reads like a James Patterson novel, but it contains facts, not conclusions like the public is being led today. I have reasonable concerns that this settlement payment being proposed of an initial, perhaps 8-year-old matter has more to do with getting the GO bond passed than the merits of a civil claim for attorney fees. I try to be fair-minded. This is a shady deal. It is also another example of why the Northwest has ended up on the short end after years of limited economic growth, especially compared to the East, because some people get special deals while the residents as a whole suffer. And the leaders of the Northwest should think hard about that. I understand that the criminal case jury determined this resident was not a public servant because he sat on a voluntary, non-binding Northwest CRA advisory board for many years. So he couldn't be convicted of crimes charged of unlawful compensation of a public servant and bribery because he wasn't technically a public servant. The Broward State Attorney's Office evaluated this matter and elected to bring those charges, not the Pompano Beach CRA and not the Pompano Beach city taxpayers. Let's say hypothetically, one of us commissioners was voting on a zoning variance and had also been taking money for unrelated work from the zoning applicant. Even if the work was not directly related, we as public officials could be in big trouble. But in this instance, even if not a public servant, under Florida Chapter 112, this gentleman certainly violated ethics laws by accepting compensation money while sitting on an advisory board. There was a conflict of interest, or at least an appearance of one, in my opinion. And after the resident had been warned multiple times by our city attorney, Mr. Berman, sitting right over there, who at that time, years ago, was an assistant city attorney. Mr. Berman verbally warned him and in writing warned him not to engage in certain conduct, but he elected to do so anyway. There were numerous actions that occurred over a lengthy period of time in which this individual was warned by our now city attorney.
T. Earl Grey hot.
And case law supports that someone is not entitled to compensation when they violate ethics law. Principles of common sense support that too. Our city attorney, Mr. Berman, he testified for the prosecution in this criminal case. Mr. Berman is subpoenaed to testify at the upcoming civil bench trial. The civil court, in all likelihood, would rule in favor of the CRA. And after reading the resident's sworn statement and whatever pleadings I could get my hands on and other materials and legal staff opinions, but nothing from the outside counsel that we've hired the expert to defend this, my view is that the chance of the CRA losing this case before a trial judge is highly unlikely. This type of favoritism hurts all of us. How coincidental that this individual was up at the last City Commission meeting reports on April 10th, strongly advocating for Mr. Harrison's $47,500 21% raise after the first year, which likewise was not put on the agenda in advance for the residents to see. A week later, on April 17th, Mr. Harrison provides us with a memo without facts, without law, and tells us it would be in the city's best interest to settle this resident's attorney's fee claim for a whopping $265,000. Those are the facts, not my opinions. If we approve this settlement, we are not only rewarding knowingly bad behavior with a huge amount of tax dollars, $265,000, but we're also losing the chance to recover years of outside counsel and staff legal fees. Can you imagine how many good things, how many street lights, we could do in the Northwest with 265,000 taxpayer dollars? I can. This is a horrible example, this settlement. It tarnishes our city reputation throughout the county. Make no mistake about that. The alleged damages, meaning attorney fees, are totally unsubstantiated in the materials I've read. The tax money is going to be paid to both the attorney and the individual without any clear reasons or facts or the amounts being disclosed. We heard that from the CRA attorney last week. Insanity is running amok in Pompano Beach today. You know, in a court of equity, a person needs to have what they call clean hands to recover money. And from what I've read, these hands are not clean at all. Mr. Harrison said if we don't settle, it discourages people from volunteering on the Northwest CRA. And Mr. Berman told you the pro forma legal language that you have to do to justify what's going on here, that there's a substantial public interest. But the opposite is true. This settlement will encourage more bad behavior, knowing the city is going to step in and reward it. I'm told some people won't vote for me for mayor if I don't support this. I hope that's not the case, but if it's true, well, I'm not in this for my own self-interest. Fighting for the residents and doing the right thing is all that matters. This is a muddy fountain. On a related note, even after this incident and other things happened over the past many years involving advisory boards and other advisory board members, it wasn't until I got elected and pushed for formal ethics and sunshine law training for all advisory board members that the city even began to do so. Let's hope it continues. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Vice Mayor, anything?